Thank you so much for joining my video. In this video, again, I got one more interesting and very realistic scenario, how to secure your Cosmos DB. So I'll explain what is the necessity to make security measures for your Cosmos DB and how the role assignment you can do for Cosmos DB. Get rid of the keys while accessing the Cosmos and use the token based authentication while connecting to Cosmos. There is a lot of useful information captured in this video. Please watch till the end and let me know if you have any questions. In my previous video, I created this Cosmos DB and I have shown how to connect with your .NET application. So there are some flaws in this approach because my priority when I was making the video was to introduce you guys with Cosmos DB and show how to connect with .NET application. So to make the code simple and straightforward, I took that approach, but there are some flaws in that approach. Let's see what are the disadvantages or loopholes in that approach. So in this Cosmos DB directly, any person in the organization, if they have Azure access, they can come here, they can add a new item, they can update the existing item, they can delete a complete document. So like whether it's any environment, whether it's a dev, QA or production, especially for production, you should not do this kind of stuff. That is first drawback. And in the approach I mentioned earlier, I was depending on the keys. So I was using the primary key. So in your organization, the person who can have access to this primary key, they can grab this key and they can write a simple code to connect to your any environment Cosmos DB, whether it's a dev, production or whatever. So using this primary key, even though if you are able to rotate it, it's not fully secured and it's not a good way to connect. So then how can we do that? So instead of using this primary key, we can go for role-based authentication. First of all, we have to disable using the primary key so that not only primary key, disable using the keys so that nobody can able to connect with the keys. So how can you do that? When you are creating the Cosmos DB itself, there is an option where you can disable using keys, and then you can assign a role-based provision, either a service principal or any managed identity. In this case, I'm going to use service principal. So I'll assign the service principal and then I will. So let's summarize. How can you secure your Cosmos DB? First, disable the key usage in the Cosmos. This you can do when you are creating the Cosmos account itself. And second, create a service principal and assign it to Cosmos DB with a proper role. So let's do that. We are going to see that. So now I'm going to create a new Cosmos DB. So this time here, if you see key-based authentication. So earlier it was enabled by default, it is enabled. So now I'm going to disable it. If you want to see how to create the Cosmos DB from the scratch, you can follow my previous video. But here I'm going to create a new Cosmos DB and the key-based authentication I'm disabling so that I can use the managed identity to get the access. Review and create. It will take a couple of minutes. So this is the new Cosmos DB and the container I created with the security. So the is feature disabled. Now I'm trying to add a new record. And when I click on save, see, request blocked by this request because the principal does not have required RBAC permissions. So right now you cannot, because you logged in with your credentials and So we disabled the keys, and you do not have proper permissions to write the data and even for read the data. So you cannot do this. So then how can you assign the rollback permissions? So there are different ways. The best way, either you can assign the RBAC permissions by using a pipeline or by using the command line. So still you can assign by using the browser, but that's not the proper way. So I'll show how to add permissions. So here, go to the access control. So add role assignment. So these are all the different roles. You can search for Cosmos. So only 3 roles have been available for the browser: CosmosDB, Cosmos DB operator, Cosmos backup operator. So these are not the sufficient roles. There are multiple Cosmos roles. So those are not available on the browser. Either might be I have some subscription level restriction or something else. But the another reason I'm not suggesting to do the role-based authentication with this. It's not properly provisioning. So I'll show in the command line, but you have to select a specific role. Click on next. I'm doing just for showing it. So click on next. Then use group or service principal. You can select the members. You can search for your keys, or so these are all the internal. So you can select the internal and select it. So now you are assigning this app registration, the service principal, as a role which I selected in the previous section. So this Cosmos account reader role, we don't need this. We need a separate, I'll show that. We need a separate role. So you have to select that role, and you have to select the app registration or the service principal, and finally you have to assign it. I'm not going to do this. I'll show how to do it in the command line. So this is the Azure CLI command: az CosmosDB SQL. So here you have options of SQL and MongoDB. Role assignment, create. I'm going to create a new role assignment. The resource group, you have to give the resource group name. Account name, you have to change it to your account name. So I updated the account name. So the account name is DT Secure Cosmos, which I created now. The scope is nothing. And the principal ID. So I'll show how to get this principal ID. So this is the application ID. So not the client ID or not the secret. So I'll navigate to the service principal, and I'll show how to retrieve this principal ID. So this principal ID is the object ID. So then the role definition name, Cosmos DB built-in data contributor. So this will enable you to write data, read data from the Cosmos DB. So what I'm trying to do here, for this service principal, I am assigning a role of Cosmos DB built-in data contributor for this Cosmos DB database. So now let's see how to where to find this application ID. So go to the app registration. So this is the service principal ID, the service principal. So go to the app registration, search with your service principal, and then so you have managed application. So this is the service principal. Service principal will have 2 entities. One is service principal, and the another one is managed application. So this, when you're trying to assign the role, you have to go to this identity, and if you click on that, it will go to the application object and try to get the information from here. So here you have to copy the object ID. and put it in your query, in your command. So you're navigating to your app registration, select the service principal, go to the managed application, and there get this object ID and put it as a service principal. So when you are assigning the role-based authentication, mostly you will select the object ID and then try to enter and see what is going. Just execute this command. It will take a couple of moments. So it's successfully executed, and you can see the ID, the name, the principal ID, resource group, the role definition, everything was successful. And this, so these built-in IDs you will not see in the browser, but you can see it in the command line. Once it get successfully assigned, let's go and see in your DT secured and IAM. Go to the role assignments and you will not find it here. You will not find it here, but if you use the command line, you can see the assigned role. Let me do. So that's why the command line is more useful and it will have more information. So if you want to read the list of role assignments, AZ, CosmosDB, SQL, role assignment list, you have to give the account name and also the resource group name. So this will list all the role assignments. You can see that. So .NET updates, you can see the principal ID. So the role assignment, the role definition is all the zeros and two. So which is nothing but your CosmosDB built-in data contributor role. So let's see the C# code, how to connect to the Cosmos and read, write data. So this is the same code which I used in the previous video, but there are little changes. So we need the endpoint URL. If you want to connect to your Cosmos account, you need this endpoint URL, which you can retrieve it from the keys. And we get rid of this primary key. We are not going to use this. That is useless right now. And this is the database ID and the container ID. And I'm using the Cosmos client and container classes. So let's see. So here I define credentials. So this part, the client secret credentials. So if you want to use that, you have to pass the tenant ID for your Azure and the client ID of the app registration or the service principal. So in the previous slide, we assigned a service principal rollback authentication RBAC to the Cosmos DB. So you have to get the client ID for the same service principal and the secret. So within that service principal, we have a secret. Grab that and initialize these values. So I hard coded in the secret section, but there is another way to retrieve these values either by config. So here I'm initiating, instantiating the client secret credential class, and I'm passing endpoint URI and this credential object. So earlier in the previous session, this Cosmos client, when I'm instantiating the Cosmos client, I passed endpoint URI and the key, but right now I'm passing the client secret credentials. So this client secret credentials contains tenant ID, client ID, and the client secret. So now your Cosmos client object has been initiated with client secrets. So then the container will be same. I'm passing the database ID and the container ID. So read items asynchronously. There are no changes, but I gave the 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 4. So it is retrieving the values in the similar fashion. Then this query is also doing the same. There is not much changes to it. And I added one more method, add product asynchronously. You can name it as, so this one, add subject asynchronously. So you're passing the model and a item, upsert item asynchronously. So the same container object have a method called upsert item asynchronously. So while calling this method, you have to pass the item and you have to instantiate the partition key by using the partition whatever. So this partition ID should be matching. And this method, it's going to insert a new item into your Cosmos DB, and then you can retrieve it. Let's execute and see this. So I am executing. So first time I don't have any data, so it will not return any data. So now it's calling the add items asynchronously. Let's see. So a item got created with ID 123 with RU charge. I'm getting the retrieving the RU charge, like how much like RU units it's taking. So first time it doesn't have any data, so that's why it's not displaying. But second time when you run it, it will display the items. Run one more time so that you can get the data. Yeah, run one more time. I updated the subject ID and the ID. See, so you can see now the item. Want to insert data, you have to run this multiple times by updating the data. But you can see the data. Synchronous. So these are the two records. Up to now, it's got updated or inserted. Time with a different Blazor subject name, and you can see the data here. So it's reading the specific item, yes, and it's reading the .NET Azure, and it inserted a new record. So this time I'll call one more time to see the complete data. So going to comment this, run it again. Yeah, you can see the Blazor as well. So I already have this record. So what will happen if I try to update, if I try to insert or do it one more time? I'll just save it. So everything, subject ID and the ID is same. Let's see what will happen. So yeah, this one updated. Now comment this code and see what's happened. Yeah, Blazor updated. So here I was using item upsert. So if the document already exists, it's going to pull that record and update it. Otherwise, it's going to add a new record or new document. So that's it. In this video, we discussed how to secure your Cosmos DB from the other developers or other team members or outside of the organization. And we discussed the most prominent way of authenticating your Cosmos DB by using the RBAC authentication by using the service principles. So I hope you understand the concept and you got more information. Thank you all once again for joining and watching my videos. Please share your feedback. Suggest the topics if you want to learn any specific topics. Suggest me. I'll definitely make those videos on priority. But sit tight and watch when my next videos. I'm going to discuss more and more interesting and useful topics. Thank you all. Happy coding.